I hope everyone is well this morning. Can you hear me? I got sound. All right, I got thumbs up. We're good. We're good. All right. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me on this. Depending on where you are, either it's a rainy day um, or you're having a good day, but you're having a great Valentine's Day. I know wherever you are, you're dry, you're safe. All right. So today we're going to talk about professional development, open it up for some questions, do some share outs, have a little combo. But I always like to start with our wellness check. How is everyone doing out there? Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. Hope everyone got your little handmade cards from your kids and from those or your office parties. I know some of you have those office parties. We look for an excuse to have an office party. Simply, with teleworking, we don't have those, but we got in our own GT party today. So happy Valentine's Day. Thank y'all for joining me. Thank you for being here. And we're gonna go ahead and get started. And as you know, I always start out with our gifted and talented definition. Who are we looking for? Those students who perform at or shows the potential for performing at remarkably high level of accomplishment when compared to others of the same age, experience, and environment. And we're looking at that for capability in intellectual, creative, or artistic area, and in that unusual capacity for leadership or excels in a specific academic field. And pretty soon we're going to talk about that capacity for leadership, because I know I've got a few questions on that and how do you look at that, how do you test for that? And we're going to talk about that in one of our upcoming GT Tuesdays as we really expound on what does that mean for the state of Texas when we've always had this language here, capacity for leadership, but how do we look at that? How do we find that? And I'm just going to put it out there. There is no test for that. So I know people have been asking those questions. What can we test for that? There is no test for that. So if someone wants to make a test for that, you're going to be a millionaire because, once you put that one out there, you got it. But we're not going to be looking for that one. All right. So really, how are your students demonstrating those skills? What is happening in those classrooms? How is that looking in your district of that self-directed learning, that thinking, that research? How are they communicating what they know, and specifically by innovative products and performances? And really thinking about what does that mean for your district? For some of you, it is using the TPSP. For some of you, it's something different. But when you look at those excel in those academic areas and you're really looking at outside of our realm of the four content, what does that mean? And even in the realm of the four content, what does that mean for your district as we're looking at students who are showing their own individuality, their creativity, also in relation to those students of the same age, experience, and environment. So really thinking, what does that look like? And how are you portraying that and communicating that to your parents, to students, to your communities? So really thinking about that, because it's that season. People are getting ready to move. People are moving around, thinking about what's going on. So, and then are your graduates really producing products that are professional quality? Really looking at those performances. And once again, how do you define that? So if someone says, how do you judge your program? When you really break down the evaluation, you can always evaluate how many you're identifying, how many you're moving into the program, but how many students are actually getting to this level of having a professional quality product? How are you looking at the services from year to year, the student academic growth? So those are some questions to think about. And then as we get into, just a friendly reminder for those GT Tuesdays, 9 a.m., 1 p.m., our next one will be at 1. And feel free to join us at any time. We got a couple more speakers coming in. Hopefully you'll be pleasantly surprised by the ones that are coming. Got a few more, and people are, you've got some coworkers who are, thinking about different things or having questions, feel free to invite them. Or if you got topics, drop me a chat and let me know what you want to talk about. And I see her, so I know she's here with me today. Our friend at Texas Association for the Gifted and Talented, Ms. Pauline Van Eden Hill. She is here with us today, and I know she got some updates because it is that season because leadership is coming around the corner. Hi, Paulina. Welcome.
Hi, happy Valentine's, everyone. Glad to see your faces. And I see a new face. Stephanie, so glad to see you from AISD. My kiddo's principal who just started a new GT position. Pretty fun. I'm Paulina Baden-Hill. I'm the executive director of TAGT. TAGT is your professional membership association. We provide professional learning, advocacy, and community building opportunities for all of you, your educators, and even the families that you serve. I wanted to make sure that everybody knows who we are, and hopefully we've got a lot of TAGT members on the call. But if you don't know me, TAGT, or don't know someone who's a member of TAGT, or if you're just new to your position and want to connect with folks, if you could either direct message or just put your information in the chat, I'd love to connect with you and make sure that you have all the resources that you need to be successful in your work. We have, it is a busy season, leadership conference is coming up, but it's actually not the first thing I'm going to talk about. Of course, we're in legislative session, and it's going to be a busy one. If you do send me your information, make sure you send me your email so I can connect with you after. That'd be awesome. So we are been at the Capitol every other week, just walking around saying hi. We finally got House committee assignments last week, and walked into our new chair of the new House Chair of Public Education office, and I think the whole office was surprised that they had been named the chair. So they're working on getting staff up to speed. And that person's name is Dr. Buckley, and he represents Colleen and some of those areas up there. So you should be getting our legislative alert emails, and the last one included links to both the House and the Senate education committees, as well as a request to shoot me an email if you're represented by anyone on those committees. It's pretty easy to check. You can just Google like who represents me, and it'll pull it up both statewide and nationally. And then you can check to see if those folks are on committees, or you can just Google them and you'll see a list of what committees that they're on. So that's really helpful because they don't really want to hear from me. They want to hear from you, their constituents, and the practitioners in the field. And so as we get closer to, whatever is going to happen this session, it's going to be important that you guys stay engaged. TAGT is not a public education organization, but most of our members are pub ed. And so, public education issues are really important to us, like things like funding. The GT allotment is based on the basic allotment. So if we can advocate for the basic allotment to go up, we're automatically advocating for the GT funds to rise. There's a lot of discussion about what's going to happen, especially around vouchers, special ed vouchers, and funding based on enrollment. It's really interesting. We walked into a House member's office last week, and they said, oh, we're going to probably, enrollment's probably going to go through. We're going to fund on enrollment, or we're going to increase the allotment by this much. And then we walked into a senator's office, and they're like, it's a no-go. No, it's not like a non-starter. We're not even going to hear it in the Senate, but we're going to pass vouchers. So we'll see. I think that there's going to be a lot of, I'm not sure that the new House education chair is a voucher fan, so that may save us in the House. And so there may be a lot of just tossing really kind of crap back and forth between chambers. A lot of conversations probably about CRT and library books and kind of bringing all that back up. Which may mean that we don't make any real substantial changes, particularly to funding pub ed, besides just hopefully a little bit more money out of that big surplus. So it might be a lot of noise. It might be some scary noise. I was texting with a member yesterday. It can be a little bit scary depending on where you sit. But if we stay focused on just making sure that education is funded well and their teachers are paid well, and that you guys are able to keep staff and serve your students, then I think we'll be okay. So we'll continue to keep you all updated. We have 3 bills that we're watching right now. One doesn't exist yet, but I'll tell you about it in a minute. Then two resolutions, and those resolutions, we have one in the House, one in the Senate. We'll just create GT Awareness Week as the first full week in April for the next 10 years, which doesn't feel very substantial, but we've tried to pass it for 3 years and it keeps getting caught up in weird places. And we're excited to be able to say that the governor will sign, something that says we can recognize, or the state recognizes GT students for the first week of April. The other bill is one that came out of a conversation with the Commissioner Advisory Council with Monica, because we are not able to identify the person at each school district who's responsible for ensuring that the Texas State Plan for Gifted Education is being implemented. And so we want to be able to contact you. We want to be able to contact the people who aren't on this call, which are probably the folks that we need to contact, the most urgently. So we're going to try to pass a bill that requires a PEIMS box that says who's responsible for GT. So super simple. And so we're excited to try to get that out. We talked to the legislative draft office yesterday and clarified some things on that. So more to come on that, but it would be really helpful if you could support those very simple things by emailing your legislators when the time comes, which is why we need you to be signed up for the legislative email. We do send the legislative email to our entire database. So whether you're a member or not, of course, we'd love for you to be a member, but if you're not getting it, please put your email in the chat as well. And I will make sure that you're added to a list. Speaking of GT Awareness Week, that is the first full week of April, which is, I should know off the top of my head. I just had the website pulled up. Hold on just a second. It is April 3rd through the 7th. And Monica, may I share my screen? Thank you. We have a webpage for GT Awareness Week. It is txgifted.org/GT Awareness Week. And you'll see this will start to be built out as we get closer. We do have a really cool parent webinar planned with Andy McNair, where they're actually going to do some project based learning with their, as a family. So that's going to be really cool. Keep an eye out for that. But I wanted to point out these resources. We call them celebration guides that one of our committees put together last year. They've been updated this year for you all to bring in GT Awareness Week to your classroom, school district, and household. And so you can download these PDFs. They're like 2-3 pages. And the teacher one includes some prompts that you can ask your kids, some writing prompts or video prompts. The principal one includes some ways that you can have principals celebrate at each campus, just to promote awareness of the students we serve and the things that make them unique. So those are available now, and then our webinar is on Tuesday, April 4th, and that's the one with Andy McNair. So make sure you mark your calendars, and we'll get more information out to you guys as soon as possible. Finally, Leadership Conference is coming up at the end of March, and we're really excited about being back in Fort Worth. Registration is looking super strong. So if you have not registered or booked your hotel room, please make sure that you do. If you're on this website and you're like, but where's all the content? It's actually over here on the left. Our masterminds have been selected by our steering committee for the event, and they wanted to talk about marketing your program, how do you create a value proposition for gifted education within the school system. And so Dr. Pashwan is going to join us. He's a UNT MBA professor. So we're really pumped to bring him in locally. And then our second session is about courage in the workplace and just building resilience and strong teams. So we're really excited about that. The schedule this year looks slightly different. We are going to have deep dives in the middle of the day on Monday, and everybody will go into a deep dive on one topic. And the topics include aligning your assessments with your services, secondary services, new coordinator. There's a couple more. I don't have it off the top of my head. But that's going to be a really cool way for us all to go really deep on a topic that you're really interested in. And then other sessions include, of course, depth and complexity. I think the other deep dive is on building equity in gifted education. There's sessions on CCMR and how gifted and talented students support that accountability measure. Lots of sessions on secondary and for new coordinators. All about data and different assessments in AP and capstones and all those things. So we're really excited to bring that content to you all, and hopefully we'll see you all there. We've also got a bunch of exhibitors ready, and they're ready to meet with you. The other thing I want to make sure you all know about is the principals workshop takes place on Tuesday. And this is something that we tried to start back in March of 2020, when we were going to have our largest leadership conference ever and had to cancel 2 weeks before. We had like 75 principals signed up to attend like a 2-hour session about gifted education. And they were mostly from the Houston area. And this idea has kind of reiterated into an actual workshop where there's 6 hours of learning available. And we were able to do this at GiftEd in Houston again last year. And it was really successful. And so we thought, why aren't we tagging this on, especially with our coordinators, to Leadership Conference? And so we've done that. It's on Tuesday from 9 to 12. And it also includes access to the summit, which is leveraging or equipping campus leadership with gifted education tools. And so that whole thing altogether would be more than 6 hours of GT credit, because we know that's important. But the key is for you all to be able to interact with your principals, especially if you're local. But we've already heard from a couple of districts in the Houston area, out of Waco, bringing a couple of principals to this. So really consider that as an option for some of your principals or all of your principals. There's no cap at this point on registration. So if you're in the DFW area, this may be a great way for you to engage a couple of your campus leaders. The hotel deadline is March 3rd. So make sure that you grab your room before then and get registered. We'd love to see more of you or all of you there. And I think that's all I've got. Thank you for the time, Monica. I appreciate you making time for us every other week.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime. Important information out there. All right. So thank you, Paulina. And those tidbits. I think someone had a question, the time for the parent webinar. Okay.
It is usually in the evening. I think we usually start about 6:30.
Got it. All right.
And it's always recorded. And we've, in the last couple of years, started providing simultaneous interpretation. And then we include both recordings, so in Spanish. So if you have a high Spanish population, we will definitely be able to cater to that. Did you state the first bill was? Yes, it doesn't exist yet. So we've been working with Senator Springer's office out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I think now I said that, I'm not positive about that, but he has submitted the language probably 2 months ago. And we just talked to the legislative drafter yesterday. So we're going to hopefully see a draft of that soon. And once we do, we'll get the number out to you so you can track it.
All right.
Thank you, Amber, for putting those links.
Yeah, Amber is my co-host. So thank you, Amber. She's always there in the background helping me and supporting, and make sure we get everything rolling and as we move forward. All right, so let's get into professional learning and really looking at what we've come up with, and looking at the state plan and looking at some of the language there. And as you know, the last time we touched the state plan was we actually touched it and start working on it was 2018. And so it's coming around where we're about to hit that next 4-year cycle. So this year coming into 23, 24, really looking at, okay, what are our next level of updates, changes, recommendations, considerations. And so looking at that, and our language is all personnel involved in the planning, creation, delivery, and administration of services to our gifted students possess the knowledge required to develop and provide differentiated programs and services. So we really need to, as we look at our, professional learning, and I know we got we always have a turnover. So we got some new people out there because I see some new faces today. But really, what does that look like for us as a state, and where do we want to go? Or how do we need to clarify some things that is out there that as we progress, there needs to be either we need a little more clarity, a little more simplification, or we need, not necessarily new language, but maybe add on a parameter or, take, give some more guidance, and I'll put it that way. So as you know, we are coming out of the Administrative Codes, Section 89.2 on a professional development. So anyone that is hired to do gifted and talented, if they do not, they have to have 30 hours. Our 30 hours are broken down into nature and needs, assessing student needs, and then curriculum and instruction for our gifted students. And then if they do not have it, they have 1 semester to get that training. So that's what the rules have. So the rules have been on the books for ages. And then teachers who provide instruction and services that are part of the program services have a 6-hour annual update. And then following that, our administrators and counselors who have authority for program decisions have a minimum of 6 hours professional development. That also includes nature and needs and program options. So really looking at that, and then really looking at how does this, and you doing this, your day-to-day life, day-to-day, you're living it. What are some things that will expound on what we already have on these rules to make your life easier? And that's the goal. When we look at the state plan, it's not to add on parameters to say confine you, but actually make your life easier as we look at how do we get this program to go forward and what are we looking at? And then as we go into it. So one of the things we added in the last program is evaluation to a written plan. So, really looking at what are you doing for PD, for your programs and for your services and for your district. And really looking at, as you talk about a program and you're looking at evaluating your services and what's going on, and then how do you make sure that your people are properly trained? So, and just taking a couple of examples of, so what is your goals? Or is it, what is the issue in your district? Is it, we need to have more twice exceptional training because, we got teachers going here. We're looking at changing up our program services. So there's going to be more programs, services happening in the regular classroom instead of the pull out. So do those teachers need a little more depth and complexity, a little more differentiated instructions on how to do that? We're looking at our kindergarten teachers because we got a whole new turnover of teachers here who need to know what we're looking for on our gifted and talented kids. Or is there really something going on where we need to talk about more social and emotional needs? Or we're looking at building out a GT dual language program. So we need to make sure we got that process built out. So really looking at what are those evaluation pieces, and you're looking at your services, and it's like, we have not done anything on products and performances. What does that mean? TPSP, using some of those components, using this. What are we looking at? And we're looking at our programs as we're building up. And then also looking at that written plan, it might be as simple as we use our regional service center to provide our professional development. Or it also should also include, what is your window? Are you from April to August for getting that 6-hour update for the upcoming year? Or are you all year long? Sometimes you're out there, sometimes you're not. And so really thinking about those kind of things of what is that simple? It might be, we're going here. It might be a 2-sentence statement. I don't know. It varies. And so really looking at that. So I'm seeing some couple of questions come into the chat. So I'm gonna go to the first one. Okay, what about AP and IB classes for GT? So yes. So if you have those a part of your GT services, and we do not, well, we do say, nope. Now we do say they cannot count for all 5 days. We do say they can count for your curriculum and instruction pieces, which is those other pieces, but not for the nature and needs and not for assessing our gifted and talented students. And so really looking at that, so nope, they're going to have to, I had to combat that question the other day. So no, so it's only 18, well, depends on how you break down your, we only allow 18 hours of their 5-day training. I'm gonna put it that way. So, and if it is not a 5-day training, we only, most districts only accept 12 hours if it's that 3-day or less. But if it's 5-day, most districts accept 18 hours of those 5 days trainings. All right. And then, but we do highly recommend after one of their updates is that they do the differentiated instruction. So because they do have to still differentiate their instruction for our GT students. Is there a template for this written plan? Currently, there is no template, but we can work on that. We will put that on our list as a template for PD. All right, next question. Okay, got confirmation there. All right, it can't count. Oh, someone is also putting what they have on there. And then, so that's me. Statement that TA said it could count for 12 hours. I can, it is on our website for the 18 hours, but I think we have to update it. I'll work with the CAC to make sure we can talk about that 12. Because most times when you're talking about the those that are less than 12, it's going to be those what used to be our pre-AP courses with it was NIMSI, I think. Yeah, that used to have like a 4-day training or a 3-day training where that they did for the summer for their trainings. So some of those. So yes. Avid. Okay, so Avid is a hot spot question, and I see Monica Simons has her hand up also. So Avid, when you think about Avid, Avid was not designed for our gifted and talented students. And so most times, most districts do not count Avid. But I know some of you have that as part of your district program services. So that's where it comes fine-tuned to what is happening in your district. Okay. 12 hours. Okay. 12 hours. We do have that in a in our website. We actually do have that. We did have that. We do have that in the website. Thank you. If someone can pull it out. Pull that for me. There you go. Thank you. Am I Amber? That is Amber. Yes, it is on the website, the language. Yes, we have been talking about that, moving it down, because, and I'm just going to be honest, there are some proponents, and we're slowly working towards that, is really moving and phasing out the APIB to be strictly, totally the GT. And so, but we know that a lot of you still use APIB as your program of services. So taking totally all 18 out was kind of, and so, you know, we got that wiggle room of the 12, 18 hours where we're working with that. Monica, I see your hand.
Yeah. Hey guys, I posted in the chat. I was asked about the language and then I posted the site as well, but it says that you have to get training in, nature needs, ID and assessment, and GT curriculum and differentiated instruction, which APIB on blah, blah, blah does not provide. So that's how the shift went down that Monica was just talking about, is that was sort of their workaround, is like, well, I'm getting curriculum. And so it was allowed for 18. And then there's another part, and I'd have to find it again, so sorry, but it's in the page that I posted. If you scroll down to professional learning, there's lots of clarifying language that can help you as you are navigating those very interesting conversations.
Yes, thank you, Monica. Yes, CAC really helped. And if you've been around for a moment, we used to have a frequently asked questions. and we revamped it to go into our guidance for interpreting the state plan. So we took those questions, made them into really just statements. And those statements are there on that document, on that page. So really taking time to, and we can take time one day as just to flow through that document. These are things, because it was a very lengthy FAQ. I think it's like 30 FAQs. So we just kind of reframed it, put it in the format of the state plan, and really kind of help walk you through what is out there in those languages. So if you got more questions, feel free to shoot them in. It's about time for the CAC to have a meeting coming up. We can really start working on and kind of clarifying some other questions and some other things. So from today's conversation, so I will make sure that we get this language out there also. But then so far we need to come up with a written template for our PD. All right. And so here's some of the things I'm going to ask you, and really thinking about, we do not have any statements about AVID and GT credit. Most do, yeah, we do not, but we can. We'll put that out there. And so, Juliet, I need you to clarify, what are we talking about for the hourly up 6 hour? Can we use AVID, or are we talking APIB? APIB. Okay. Possibility. Okay. Thank you for clarifying. And so as we talk about our expiration of 30 hours, and you know, right now we are so much a local control state, but really thinking about giving some parameters of how old is old for your 30 hours. If you take me, for instance, my first time, I took it in 1994, probably, when I did my first 30 hours of training. And then if I went to your classroom right now, would you accept my 1994 hours of training? Or would you want my most recent one where, you know, I've gone through in 2020, well, probably 2012, 2013, somewhere in there, or the last time we revamped. So really those kind of questions we need to look at is starting over, because, you know, some of you, you know, how do we look at that? Especially for those who have no documentation, because I know some of you have it inherited. I'm gonna put it nicely like that, inherited programs where there is no documentation, and you're looking for someone, you got an affidavit, a statement that says, or a character witness statement that yes, they did complete their training, and that's how you got on the record. And it's like, is this gonna be acceptable or what? So really looking at that. And so really looking at the time period, the rollover of our 30 hours, of our 6 hour updates. A lot have asked even for our administrators, because, you know, we're in our counselors. Right now, we got a one and done, unless your district policy, and most of your district policies do not have an update that is, you know, do we need to consider a 5-year window, a 3-year window, or a 10-year window? What does that look like as we talk about what's going on with our students? So I want to hear your thoughts. What are your feelings out there? What do you want to consider? You know, when we think about expiration of our 30 hours, expiration of the 6 hours, starting over point, you know, no documentation. What are your thoughts? Anyone?
Okay, I'll jump in.
Thank you, Crystal.
So I have bitten those bullets, except for I got trained back when Methuselah was alive. However, if you don't have documentation in your training, I don't care, even if it happened under my watch, you have to get your 30 hours over. You have to do it again. No documentation, no proof, no, then hours have to be changed. The time period, we haven't rolled it out yet, but we're working on a badging system. But one of the things that I had done is have teachers do a rotation of hours. Like if you did social emotional, you don't need to do that next summer. You already did that. We had a trouble with differentiation, so that was kind of the piece. And then the time period, we are looking at that as far as like reviewing things. I don't think you need to review identification and assessment because it hasn't really changed in our district. But we try to incorporate some of those things in our updates so that we can kind of get a refresher in for them on our in-district updates. And then we are looking at having our administrators and counselors renew their 6 hours every 3 years. We haven't implemented it yet, but that's what we've been talking about.
And I'll add on to that. This is Monica Simons. When I have someone who brings in their 1994 or whatever certificate, and I know that I don't want to make them mad at me because I need them on my side, I assign their update to be day 4, depth and complexity, whatever it is I think that they need. And that way it's sort of a compromise, especially with TRA out there taking up every moment of waking time for a lot of teachers. You know, we don't need to make people be mad at us. And really the end goal for me is that they get the training they need so that our kids get what they need. And how do I do that? Well, I will just sneak it in somehow and make that happen. Anyway, that's my 2 cents and how we work around that.
Thank you, Monica. Cindy.
Hi, good morning. I have a question in reference to the 30 hours and those teachers that I'm going to retire. I'm putting in for retirement. So then they don't complete their 6-hour update. And then they decide to change their minds and stay on another year. And then once we throw out, okay, well, now you have to do your 30 hours all over again because you let that year lapse. You know, how do we proceed with that? Because it was based on retirement.
Okay, so I'm looking at the chat because most people do not make them review the whole 30 hours if they let a year lapse. Most of them say you need to get your update.
Okay.
But if it's in your policy, you got to follow your policy.
Right.
And so, but most just say, here, you need to get this update to get them through. So it's not a start over kind of process. So most will just do the 6-hour update.
Okay.
Otherwise, because they are not a service provider now, because they are untrained people, you just need to let them know and let their parents know that, okay, because this teacher did not get her training, either you have to have some other way that they are being served, and because, or you know, and I hate to say this, you're looking at, because you got to look at another way of getting your kids served, because you got all this group, and that's going to be the next challenge in difficulty. And so, yeah. All right.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah, Holly.
So in Irving, we're self-contained. So the training is critical for our teachers. So if they're teaching those kids all day and they didn't have an update, so I mean, with all things being equal, maternity leaves, whatever, if they miss 1 year, then I'm like, okay, then you need to catch up this year and take 2 sessions of update. So 12 hours of update, right? And then you're caught up. But if they, let's say they taught GT and then they didn't teach GT, so they're like, I don't need my update for like 3 years. And then the principal puts them back in GT, but they never did their update. So they've also been out of the game. Then I make them redo it, because that training and what they do in that classroom, compacting curriculum, differentiating all day long in every subject, is so important. So I'm a little bit of a Nazi about it too. So I'm very, well, they don't like to see my emails coming that says GT training. But anyway.
Well, we thank you for your emails that says GT training. So and that's the critical piece. Knowing what is going on in your district and knowing, okay, this is what we need. This is how we need to have it happen. really is critical. And so I think part of that is really knowing what is your goal, and it goes back to that written plan of what does it mean, and so they know upfront. Even if you're retiring in the upcoming year, you still need your update. If you are going on your maternity leave, at some point you're going to be still teaching kids. You need your update. So it's still going into there and going into that process. Joycelyn, you got a question? I just see some hands. You're off mute.
No.
All right. And I saw robust chat. Did I miss a question, someone, as we go in there? No, there is no regulation that you need to do updates in a year. So actually, TEA does not have a guidance statement. You know, I try to stay out of your local business, but typically, and I just kind of go, I know what you do as some of you do as a district, you make them take, they resume their GT updates. And so they get back into the game. As you said, Holly does, you know, if you miss 2 years, you got to take 2 years of updates. Some of you is just, I need you to get current, up to date on your update as you go into it. So, you know, that's something we can study and have those conversations. But this is part of why we got GT Tuesday, to hear what you do and how you're doing it, and then really looking at what's going on as we go into that. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
This is Alyssa. So with those of you who are stricter in your, I guess, expectations on hours, do your principals support you in that? Are they the ones also piggybacking with commentary? I'm just wondering, like, realistically, how are you getting everybody to do all those things all the time? Yeah. I don't
that was a question to the field. Who wants to answer? Holly, I see her.
Our principals do support the training. They are also usually on top of their teachers and run their audits and things. When they do that, some are better than others. But in our district, I kind of use the same thing. I'm like, so you would, if it's a SPED teacher, would you not support them getting their required training? Because they also have some required training, and essentially it's a very specialized service. This teacher is with these kids all day long, especially in elementary. So yeah, most definitely.
Anyone else want to add in what you're doing in your district?
Monica, this is Debbie from Austin.
Hi, Debbie.
So that old House Bill 5 from whatever it was, when we had that accountability for a few years, we never let go of that. We still assign accountability ratings to all of our campuses every year, and that's how we still hold them accountable for all the things, including professional learning. And so I know it's not an official report that's published anymore, but I don't necessarily tell our schools that, if you know what I mean. I just always tell them failure to complete your update will result in a negative accountability rating. If you're striving to reach the exemplary rating or the accountability level, whatever it used to be, compliance, then you will complete these things. And I do use that same wording with teachers, principals, counselors, with everyone. And as far as tracking, someone was asking, it's a nightmare, but we do it. We have, you know, a data person in our department that keeps up with all those things for 113 schools. It is very difficult, I agree, but without tracking it, you'll never know who needs what. So it is essential, in my opinion.
And, you know, and when you think about it, and as you're going through, you still do a report to your school board at some point. And it might be a minor thing on your school board, you know, on their red flag, but that report still goes into their hands. So if you're going and looking at, okay, here's all of our teachers, you know, these are our schools, and this school has less than 5 people trained compared to this school, you know, one of those school board members' children is in that school probably. And they're going to like, why is this person not trained? Why is this staff not trained? Why are the administrators not trained? So it might be becoming a part of, you're evaluating, you're just looking at your program and you're just talking about the numbers of how many, you're saying we identified this many students, this is how many students were served, these are how many teachers, because I got a question from someone that works for the legislative board on why there's so few teachers identified on our taper reports for gifted and talented. So really, when you look at it, it's only those who provide full-time services that are being reported by most of your districts on our taper report. But we know that there are more teachers providing GT services out there. So when you think about how is that being documented and where is that being documented, it's really more what is held in-house on how we look at that. And so when we start thinking about really getting into what does this mean, how does it look, who's capturing that data, because right now, when you really think about it, other than what you have on staff, on document, that's it, unless the teacher is good about keeping their own documentation. Because if I decide to leave TA and go back to a school district, you got to rely on what, I have not, even though I've created or reviewed 30 hours of training, I have not actually done 30 hours of training since I was in a school district. And, I left the school district in 2012. So over 10 years now, but I've still been working in the work, but I have no documentation other than, oh, she's the creator of it. But there's no certificate for being the creator of it. You know what I mean? So really thinking about what does that look like? And as we go forward. And I see our time is almost there. All right, so other thing is really looking at when we talk about our professional learning calendar, really breaking down when is your window for those updates. If you come in and say you get hired in October, when are you expected to have your 30 hours completed in your, by December? Or what's the, because, we have, some of you are very literal about our statements in the law, and it says the semester, but you just got hired in October. Is that accomplishable in that 2 weeks? October, November, December, October, November, and December is broken down to probably a month. So that that 6 week period, can someone get their training in that time period that's being effective? So really thinking about that as we go into it and as we go through it. Looking at the updates when they're getting their training, when they come in as new hires, what is their expectations? How are you handling new hires? Is that an easy flow into all of the requirements, those new teachers to the district, new counselors, really looking at that and those kind of conversations. So we had those questions a while ago about documentation. So who is the keeper of the certificates? Do you have an office clerk? When I was in the district, there was a clerk. She had the master spreadsheet. Actually, I eventually got a hold of that master spreadsheet too, of everyone's training, of all that going into that. What is acceptable documentation? Because, some of our sister programs and our other organizations out there are really trying to get into your programs and get people to come to their trainings. TCEA was building a whole strand for gifted ed. So, if you go to TCEA, love the conference, how much of that are you accepting coming into your program? How do they know what's acceptable, what's not? English language arts, they have a whole strand, really looking at those, really coming out into how this process looks. Who verifies outside trainings for GT content? I've worked with our science department. They really look at, those programs like our Texas and Wildlife, our, the state aquarium, all of them have programs that want your GT kids to come and they're talking about it. But how do you accept that content for teachers' education? And what does that look like? And then how long do you maintain documentation? Because if I'm leaving, I retired last year, going back to our example, and is it wiped out and I decide to come back? Do I have to start over? What is the process? I changed districts. It was up over here at Skyward. Now that I moved over here, is it gone from your Skyward? Or do I need, are we telling people you need to download that before you walk away? So really thinking about that. And what are your, what is your procedures on that? How do they know who to turn it into, who to talk to, where to capture it from? Is it just school-based? Because, sometimes our administrators don't pass it on, because you need that also. Our HR needs that, because we're back under fiscal compliance now. So we're really they're going to be looking at, if we're paying for this person, are they certified? Are they, do they have their training? So really looking at that as they go into that. Have more, so we'll continue this conversation. But I'm gonna go ahead to any other questions, wonderings, as we got take some time for that. I thank you for the chat. Yes, these will be posted. I will get better on my job on that, get this updated and put it on the website. So I will get up to date this week on that. I will make sure all of them are there. And Stacy, so your hand.
Good morning. Okay, so it's a record question, but it's not what we had been talking about. So we are looking at digitizing all of our student data that we use for testing. And what we are wondering is, we know that in essence, we're supposed to keep a student's records for 5 years. We keep them through graduation and then 5 years. But what we are wondering is, as we are trying to upload these, is there any guidelines to us as to, does the entire COGAT have to be uploaded? Does the entire CMAT have to be uploaded? Or is the results on the profile sheet, is the score on the profile sheet enough? We're just trying to figure out how much scanning and data actually has to be stored in that file for that student.
All right. So give me 1 minute, because someone asked me about retention the other day, and I'm going to drop the link to our section in the retentions record. And then I'm going to drop the language. And so the language states, records for each student referred to or receiving services and gifted and talented program, including nomination and observation documentation, testing results, parent consents, committee reports and recommendations, and other records of service required under state regulation or pertinent to the identification of students for participation in gifted and talented programs. So I'm going to say this. Probably not all of the documentation, but what those results and those pieces that will affect that affected the decision to place them into the program. So probably not the entire test, but that result sheet that and that data profile, whatever those pieces are that you use. So yes, did it help?
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. All right, other questions, wonderings?
Monica, this is Michelle Wilson in CFB. I have a question about the TEA reimbursement when it comes to our teachers taking trainings like AP Summer Institute. And so we're aware in our district of the verbiage and how the reimbursement works like every other year. But if we have teachers who are wanting to seek scholarships or grants to attend these trainings, are they exempt from those grants and scholarships because we offer them the reimbursement every other year? Does that make sense what I'm asking? Like, so would they not be able to qualify for those scholarships since we technically offer the funding, but we only offer it every other year?
Let me look into that. I would probably say no, but it's been a moment since I've worked with that program, and I can reach out to them, or actually have Kate come on and talk about it. But I don't see why it cannot happen.
We have teachers who get their scholarships and things like that. So it's paid for. So I don't submit them for TTR that year, right? So then the next year, if they decide to go and I pay for it, then I submit them for TTR. So
Okay, that's what we were thinking. That's how that would work. We just want to make sure that it was clear and that we weren't, that nothing was gonna happen, that we would send them and have them get the scholarship and kind of mess anything up. So thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, other questions? All right, so someone's looking at digitizing their records. What programs are you using?
We are using, our district has purchased Laserfish. And it's being used for the entire district, and then we're just determining by department how many people have ultimate control. I forget, there's a subscription process to it. One of the reasons why when we spoke to, we're just now entering this phase of how to make this happen, but other people in our district have started, or other departments have started. And so what we found is a couple of the other companies, or one of the other companies that we had used in the past, when we quit using them, they held our data. They wouldn't release it to us unless we paid them. So when we reached out, or when our district did research for Laserfish, they're like, no, when you go, you get all your stuff. There's no holding your data for ransom or anything like that. So that is the one. If you're looking for a new one, why? I mean, I just want to know, just curious, because it's all new to us.
Maybe it's the way we scanned it in, but we have like 20 whatever years worth of records. It's really hard to sort and find things when you have so much in there, but we've been using it for a while. So maybe there's some new tricks to the system that we weren't aware of in the past.
Thank you.
Got 1 minute. So thank you for joining me today. So for those who are new to us today, so all of this will be housed on our Gifted and Talented Education Resources update page. I will make sure that all the links, the video, and actually I will try to make sure that the chat is there also, because it's been a robust chat today. Thank you for this conversation. We didn't get through all of the slides on professional development. That might be another day. But thank you. Happy Valentine's Day. Enjoy your time. Spend time with some loved ones today. And I appreciate you. Thank you. And have a great one. So that's it, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.